What's up? My name's Eric, and today I'm going to show you guys why budget guitars are where it's at and why you should honestly just consider a budget guitar as your next guitar, because they offer a lot if you don't already know it. So let's get right into this. So the guitar we have in question today is this 8-string Harley Benton. You can only get them from Thomann brand new, and this one was around 550 bucks Canadian, and it's a multi-scale neck through 8-string with a big old reverse inline headstock that has locking tuners, and it has these nice monorail kind of single bridge saddles here. Honestly, for 550 bucks, you really can't get this guitar anywhere else. I know Agile and Rondo Music were doing it for a while. Don't know if they still are anymore, but it seems like Thomann and Harley Benton have kind of filled that void for a little bit anyways. My buddy actually owns this guitar, and he said, hey, just give it a once over, and do what you do getting a brand new guitar, especially a budget guitar. So kind of spawned the idea of, let's just walk through this guitar, see how it plays and sounds, and the fit and finish of this compared to maybe some of my other more expensive 8 strings, which we'll get to later in the video. Alright, so real fast, let's just look at this in a little bit more detail before we throw it on the bench up here, which is also known as my kitchen table, because, well, welcome to living where it's very expensive and you don't have the luxury of having multiple rooms and multiple workplaces. Yeah, fit and finish look fine. I mean, there's like a little streak right there, as you can kind of see, but for 550 Canadian dollars on an 8-string like this, reverse headstock, locking tuners, and the neck feels pretty nice. Neck through, I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people like to knock these budget guitars, but something to be said about them, and especially, if you're like me and you like to tinker and you like to work on guitars and fix them. This is kind of right up my alley anyways. I like doing this anyway. Sometimes I have to do this with real expensive guitars anyways, just because I wanted to get it to where I like it to be playing, not from a factory setup. So yeah, let's just set this thing up, let's clean it up, get some new strings on it, and let's just see how it fares up. Just like getting plugged into my laptop or my computer. And maybe let's just, do a quick fit and finish compared to my Schecter and my Ibanez, and let's see how this thing compares to something 2 or 3 times the price. Here we go. First thing you want to do, obviously, get the strings off. One of the best investments you can make, especially if you want to take your strings off using something like a drill. This will run you maybe around 10 bucks at the music store, and it'll just clamp right onto the tuning pegs, and you just use your drill to unwind it. It saves you so much time. So invest in one of these, or if you don't have a drill, one of these things. Where it's at. Let's do that. Strings are off. Fretboard probably is going to need a bit of hydration. Frets actually look really good for a $550 guitar. I recently had to set up a guitar around 4 times this one's value that was apparently brand new, and it looked like it was a nice demo one. The fingerboard actually had, some scratches on it, and you could tell it was pretty rough from the factory. The frets had to be cleaned and everything, and for a guitar like 4 times the price of this thing, that should not be a thing. Whereas a guitar that's 550 bucks Canadian, and it's pretty normal for a brand new guitar, like the fretboard might need some hydration, that's acceptable. Alright, so the only issue I found here is that the locking mechanisms for the tuners, they were a little tight to get loosened and everything. So what I'm going to do here is, I got this stuff here. It's called this 3-in-1 oil. My camera will focus. There it is. It's called 3-in-1 oil. You can get that from any hardware store. I got mine from Canadian Tire for all you Canadian folks up here. And if you don't know what Canadian Tire is, it's like this wonderful Canadian folklore store that's like in Canada only. I mean, it's a hardware store, right? But go to there, get some of that, and throw it in there, and you'll be good to go. Fun thing about Canadian Tire is that they make their own money, and it's like a form of currency. It was before like points came into play with like visas and stuff. And there was a bar in my hometown that would actually accept that as currency. So you can go to Canadian Tire, get all your stuff, go buy a barbecue, get your money back in Canadian Tire money, and go to the bar and go spend it on beer. Insane. Well, the joys of living in a small town, right? So this will save you from having to buy new hardware. So let's do this. Alright, next thing I'm going to do here, use the drill and spin these tuners around just so the 3-in-1 oil goes around and gets into all the moving parts there, just so everything's going to move a little bit easier. So that stuff's around 10 bucks at Canadian Tire, as I said, and it'll go a long way. So I'll see you in a bit. All right, real fast, just tightened up all the tuners and everything. They weren't super loose, just I like to give them a little snug on the top and the bottom side there. And all the strap pins were good. Bridge was fastened down really well. I mean, I'm gonna keep repeating myself and sound like a broken record, but like, you know, 550 bucks and you don't have to do much of this thing, like, worth considering. So next thing we're gonna do, oil the fingerboard. All right, another thing I like to do is use a bit of fretboard oil on the nut here. And that'll lube the nut slots here for the strings, and that'll actually make them hold tuning a little bit better. So that's another quick tip and quick trick that you can do to make your budget guitar punch up beyond its price bracket. Alrighty, so we have the strings on, the fretboard's oiled, and hardware is tightened down, even though like it didn't really need much, and the locking mechanisms are a little oiled up now, so now they won't stick as much as they were from the factory. Old strings are off. There was like a 10 to 74 set, like that common 8-string set that was first released, and it's still being made. I don't know why it's still being made. The gauges don't really make sense in my opinion, but we now have an Ernie Ball 7-string set, which is 10 to 56, and we got an 80 on the bottom, and that feels way better personally for just standard E. Maybe that other set would work for something a little lower. I'm not sure. I mean, that's just not my go-to set for an 8-string. But honestly, even with the change of gauges, a little bit lighter and a little bit of gauges that make a bit more sense around the low register here, the action feels way better. I'm probably gonna take it down just a little bit more. Then also we're gonna intonate this thing and get it all in tune and everything. And another thing that I like to do when the guitar is in this state, when some people might say, oh, it's a brand new guitar, it's having a hard time staying in tune, or when you put a new set of strings on and it just goes out of tune a lot. Honestly, what I do is just like do the big Zach Wild bends, you know, bend and tune until you bend the string and it just doesn't go out of tune. All right, so the only thing I can actually complain about is the actual saddle design, is this housing part right here. I think this would be better if it was like its own monorail saddle, just kind of like how other companies do their fan fret systems here with the individual saddles as well. I think they could do without this housing here, because you can only go so low before the string actually starts to resonate on here, and you get these weird overtones that can only be remedied by raising the action. So depending how low you like your action and how low you can actually get it without buzzing, you might run into some issues there. But if you want like just a general setup, you're gonna be fine. But otherwise, this thing's pretty sweet. Let's plug it in and see how this thing sounds. All right, here we got the Harley Benton 8-string all done up. Honestly, it really checked out from the factory, which is very impressive for a guitar of this price point. I also really want to congratulate Harley Benton on their fret edges here. They're fantastic. They feel so good, especially for the price again, which is kind of what I really want to emphasize. We're just going to plug this in and just hear how it sounds on its own. No mix or anything, because honestly, you can make anything sound good in a mix. Let's see if this guitar kind of holds up on its own and sounds and feels as quality, or maybe like, you know, a couple price points up, you know what I mean? So, going straight into my computer, we have Fortin NTS going on here, and then that's it. Any clean and leads is all going to be through the Neural DSP Petrucci plugin. So, let's just see how this thing sounds. Here we go. I don't know. This thing sounds and feels pretty dang awesome, honestly. I mean, you might be able to hear a little bit of like strings going out of tune and everything. Brand new strings and everything, they probably need to be stretched out just a little bit more and everything like that. But overall, like, this feels really great right out of the box. And honestly, the pickups sound great so far. I mean, it's running through a plugin, so then again, like, you know, if you get a good preset or if you make your own good preset, everything's gonna sound kind of good. I'm really interested to try this thing like with a tube amp maybe down the road and to see how these pickups sound, again, like in the room with like not a traditional like setup for extended range guitars, because it seems like everyone, for the most part, likes to use plugins and modelers for their extended range guitars, which makes sense, but you know, I'm kind of old school and I like my tube amp still, so wouldn't mind trying this through a tube amp just to see how it sounds. So yeah, no, very impressed with this overall so far. Even with a lot of the smaller details, like really nice, really good quality. All right, and last part of the video here, we're just gonna look at all three of these 8 strings from various different price points and then just see how a Harley Benton fits into this mix here, right? So right here we have the Schecter AT-X C8 Blackjack. This is one of their more premium import models made in Korea. We got the 2228 made in Japan Prestige Ibanez from 2007 over there, very high quality guitar as well. This was like the flagship 8-string for a very long time. First production 8-string actually. And then right in the middle we got the old Harley Benton. And honestly, between the three of these, if I was on a really tight budget and I wanted to buy something new, this is probably the one I would actually have to go for, because it honestly serves as a great platform to eventually mod, especially if you don't like the pickups on this. This is a great platform to mod it on. You can change the bridge hardware out probably. You know, there's a lot of companies that make different saddles that can replace this for sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's a well-built guitar. That even though all these guitars have different specs and everything, different body woods, different pickups, different hardware brands, I mean, they're all pretty well constructed. I don't want to say the same. I think that's going to make a lot of people mad. They're all within like the same kind of idea of each other. You know, we have super strats all across the board here and their own take on the super strat, right? Everything was probably CNC'd because that's the most accurate way to make a guitar, you know, especially with the neck and everything. And like, you know, this thing is solid, right? The Schecter's solid, the Ibanez is solid. Now it just kind of boils down to what's your budget and what kind of accessories can you live with? Can you live with no-name pickups? Can you live with a no-name bridge? Can you live with no-name locking tuners, right? Can you live with maybe having to do a bit of a setup right out of the factory? You know, small things like that. And or do you want to pay a little bit more and then maybe get those premium pickups and that premium hardware as well, right? I mean, as I said earlier, I'm personally not a fan of this Edge 3 bridge. You know, it's not my thing. I'd rather take a hip shot over it any day, or a bridge like this. But you know, that's the nature of getting a 2228. You're kind of stuck with that, the design of the time, right? And that's all Ibanez had. They've since changed that on their more standard production 8 strings, but back then that's all you could get. And I know it's frustrated a lot of people on a lot of the Ibanez forums I was reading about that bridge as well, especially some of the trouble I've encountered with it too, right? So sometimes, you know, more money isn't always better in certain regards, right? It all depends on what do you want, what can you live with, what can you make a compromise of, and at the end of the day, what is your budget and what can you live with? I think being a new guitar player in this day and age is the best time to be a guitar player, because there's so many options, especially coming from practice amps. Use that in air quotes because you can just go buy a plugin and it sounds amazing, right, with a computer, and have that and take it all over the world. And you can have a $500 8-string that's multi-scale and fan multi-scale neck through and has pretty good hardware and pretty good quality control overall. It's not like when it was back in the day, even when I was in my early teens getting into guitar and everything, where there was a real night and day difference between a $200 guitar and a $1,000 guitar and a $2,000 guitar. It was like night and day difference. Like it was like very obvious. Whereas now, like, the standards have increased because it seems like everything has to be good and everything is in competition with itself because everyone is trying to push their product, so it has to be good, right? Just with plugins, just with anything related to music, it has to be good. So fortunately, you're gonna get good guitars at no matter what price point you're at. But as I said, you might have a little bit of issues with maybe some of the guitars that are of cheaper quality or a cheaper price point. You might have guitars that have issues at higher price points. play the guitar before you buy it if you can, or don't be afraid to take a risk on maybe something a little cheaper. Learn how to fix a guitar, learn how to set up a guitar, and save some money. Make it a mod project or something. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it, but you can't go wrong with all 3 of these, and I've probably said it 100 times at this point. All comes down to what's your budget, what can you live with, and what do you absolutely need. So, yeah, this thing's great, and it holds up, and I would love to play one of these live at some point, you know, and put it on a full-on tour and see how it holds up. Alright, so that's pretty well the end of this video here, and just kind of wanted to wrap up that this was a whole impromptu thing. My buddy Andrew just got this guitar, and he's like, hey, set it up for me and see what you think. And I've said, sure. I mean, I've only heard, I've heard good and bad about Harley Benton, I've heard good and bad about every other brand under the sun, but especially being a budget-oriented guitar, I was really interested to get my hands on this and really see how this thing stacks up. I'm more so familiar with Agiles, and I'm wondering if always wondering if this was in the ballpark or going to be the new Agile. I don't know if this is going to be the new Agile, but I know this is a very popular option, especially because, well, it's a neck-through fan fret 8-string with pretty sweet options and design features for a really good price. And if you don't like, you know, the pickups and the electronics, just switch them out. Not that hard. All right. And I really encourage you, if you watch this video and maybe you took something home from maybe the little setup that I gave on it, you know, take a risk. Go buy one of these things or go check it out and then throw your own new pickups in it or put some new hardware on it. Like, that stuff really goes a long way. But if you have something that has really good build appointments like this and good quality, like the fret ends here, like really good attention to detail, you're already going to be getting a really good guitar at the end of the day. So if you like this video and you learned something new, leave a comment, let me know what you liked about it. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job. It lets me know what you want to see going forward for all these videos. If you like all the Pantera stuff I do, you know, drop a comment, a like, consider subscribing as well. You know, turn the bell on, lets you know that I'm putting up new videos, whether it's like this or the normal stuff that I am putting on YouTube here. And yeah, you know, all the social medias are linked below, so let's go hang out and let's talk guitars. That's what it's all about. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.